Calling the zoning hearing board for Makefield Township for November 15th to order. The first thing up is there are only 4 members here today. So a majority means 3 have to vote in favor. So be aware of that with regards to your presentations. Or
tie is a no vote.
okay.
Tie does not go to the runner in zoning board appeals.
All right, so first up is Appeal 22-1975, and Adam can read the exhibits in and get sworn in and go.
So we have the application as A1, the site plans as A2. We have revised plans as A3. We have the proof of publication is B1, the proof of posting is B2, and B3 is the notice to neighbors.
Okay, you can get sworn in now.
Yes. Good evening, Mike McGinnis from Begley Carlin here on behalf of the applicant. And I have with me Eric Clays from Gilmore and Associates and Naveed Malik from the Foundation.
Eric Clays from Gilmore and Associates. Yes.
And then Mr. Malik, can you also state your name?
Yeah.
for the record?
Naveed Malik. Naveed, D as in David, Malik.
And procedurally, I do know that Mr. Ettinger is participating remotely representing 2 of the neighbors. And I don't know if it's the board's pleasure. I know he wanted to make a statement at the outset, which I have no objection to.
That's fine.
All right.
All right, so good evening, members of the zoning hearing board. My name is Will Ettinger. I am representing Cheryl Dacey and Peter Burke. They're the owners of 4 Williams Lane, which is an adjacent property to the subject property of tonight's hearing. Throughout the last 2 months, Mr. McGinnis, the Zubaida Foundation, and my clients have engaged in negotiations, and we have reached an agreement that for my clients to remain neutral in tonight's hearing. Nevertheless, we would request party status, but the terms of our agreement were forwarded to the zoning hearing board solicitor today, and kind of with that, we would elect to remain neutral in the application.
And I will state, we have received Mr. Ettinger's letter dated November 15th, and we've reviewed the 5 points therein, and we have no objection.
Thank you.
Right.
Go ahead now.
Thank you. I would like to state at the outset, my appreciation on behalf of the Zubaida Foundation. I know this matter has been continued for a number of occasions here, so thank you for your indulgences thus far. As Mr. Ettinger has indicated, we've been attempting to provide additional information regarding this project, both to his clients and to other interested members of the community. So again, thank you for the multiple continuances that have been granted to get us to the point we're at this evening. Procedurally, as Mr. Flagler noted, we have, during the pendency of this application, provided a revised zoning plan to the zoning hearing board. The substantive effect of that plan was essentially to remove we'll call it the loop or the access drive that was to the rear of the structure. The original site plan proposed the access drive, and through the last amendment that was submitted to the board, that access drive has been removed. So we are not seeking approval for the impervious surface percentage that correlated to that access drive. The effect of the removal of that drive reduces the impervious surface percentage with this application from 24% to 22%, where there's 21% presently at the location. So we are not withdrawing the relief with respect to impervious surface, but the nature of the relief is reduced by 1 percentage point. The foundation owns and operates a mosque that's located at 855 Big Oak Road. The subject property is approximately 4.91 acres and is zoned R2. What we're looking to do is to demolish an accessory secondary structure on the property and replace it with a new accessory structure, which has a slightly larger footprint, but is going to be built entirely on impervious surface. So with this application, we're not actually adding impervious surface due to the construction of the new building. The reason why we're asking for relief to add an additional percentage of impervious surface is because as part of the application, we're showing 8 additional parking spaces, which would be held in reserve. At which point, with the township, and Ms. Kirk is here on the township's behalf, if the township ever were to decide that based upon the use at this site or the uses that are proposed in front of the board this evening, those parking spaces become necessary at a later date, we will agree to build out those 8 parking spaces. So the 1% impervious surface coverage would allow us to facilitate the construction of those spaces, and the construction of those spaces would be fully with the discretion of the township. The 1% impervious surface coverage, we will agree, and Mr. Malik will affirm as part of his testimony, will not be used for any other purpose for any site improvements other than the parking spaces if they're deemed necessary at a later date. What this application really is, and I will briefly summarize the dimensional variances momentarily, is basically to acquire permission to essentially reuse, repurpose the accessory structure, which is already on the site. We're going to demolish it. We're going to build a new structure. And we would like to provide a bit of education about the uses that we're proposing at that structure, because I think some of the concerns that the neighbors had, understandably, when they received notice of the application, and the notice states that we want a community center, we want a daycare center, we want to provide funeral services. Without additional context, that seems admittedly like a lot at this building. You're going to hear tonight that that is not, the scope of that is significantly limited, probably, than what people were expecting when they received notice of this hearing. But it is, again, to repurpose the accessory structure. The dimensional variances that we need, other than the impervious surface percentage, I would submit are de minimis in nature. We have a 1 foot additional front yard setback because the existing building is a bit jogged and the new building would be rectangular in nature. It encroaches 1 additional foot into the front yard setback. So we need relief to have a 38.72 foot front yard setback. The lot area is obviously a pre-existing condition. It's 4.91 acres. Technically speaking, the community center use requires 5 acres. This is then less than 0.1 acre short of what would be allowed. So we need dimensional variance for ratification that we can have a community center on a site that is 4.91 acres. We have a side yard setback variance. We are not actually encroaching any farther into the side yard, but again, because the footprint of the building is expanding minorly to the rear, if this makes sense, we're encroaching more into the side yard in terms of the depth of the building, but we're not actually exacerbating the side yard setback. But technically, that requires a dimensional variance. The use variances, which we will get into with Mr. Naveed Malik's testimony, are, again, to allow technically a daycare, a community center, and funeral services. The community center is envisioned to have basically dry goods at the location, and then approximately once a month, there's a van that shows up at the site. The goods are loaded onto the van and they're taken to serve members of at-need communities, homeless communities. There are not members of those communities would not be showing up at the site. It's just a way to service those communities and store some of those goods. That's part of the community center use. The daycare is an accessory use. It's not open to the public. It is designed to have a handful of members of children who are associated with the mosque that will be able to come to this accessory site and receive daycare services. Again, we're not anticipating any additional parking or traffic that would be generated as a part of this use. It's purely accessory in nature and not open to the public. Finally, the funeral service use is just the ability approximately once a month If a member of the community passes away, certainly Mr. Malik can expand upon this, but there is a process in the Muslim community to clean the body. No chemicals are utilized. There's no body storage overnight, but you clean the body, wrap the body, and then it's sent to be buried. That process, my understanding is, takes approximately 30 minutes. So those are substantially the three uses that would occur in this building. They are, again, I would submit, would have a negligible, if any, traffic and parking impact. As Mr. Ettinger is aware, and we agreed to as part of the condition, the main peak hours of the mosque are early in the afternoon on Friday. This accessory structure would not be utilized during those hours. So really the one time where there is a peak traffic demand and parking demand at the site, this building would not exacerbate the conditions at that time. Otherwise, what I would like to do, if it's the board's pleasure, is to call Mr. Malik, have him provide a bit more background and hopefully affirm everything I said in the summary. And then Mr. Clays is here to walk through any questions the board would have about the site design.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name is loud enough.
Yeah.
My name is Naveed Malik. I serve as the president of Zubaydah Foundation. Zubaydah Foundation is a non-profit charity organization which was created in 2005. It has two main areas of function. One is it operates a mosque at the same location, and second is a charity wing, which encompasses quite a few different areas. But as an example, we sponsor student scholarships. In last year, we sponsored 4 different districts, merit scholarships. We also kind of sponsor food at soup kitchens and homeless shelters. And one of the major areas that we focus on is providing food to needy, especially with this COVID era. It became more and more important, although we were doing it even before that. Except that in COVID times, the need became bigger and bigger. So what we do is we store dry food items, and once a month, we package them into monthly packages and then send out a message to neighboring communities, organizations in the neighboring communities, to assess their needs and come and pick up those packages. So once a month, they come in and pick up those packages and take it to their local communities and distribute it. So this is done as a way to make sure that we don't create any issue for our neighborhood in any possible way. It's a very high impact from a charity perspective because we are able to reach a rough estimate, I would say give out about 10,000 meals a month. But from a local community impact perspective, it's a very low impact, so negligible that probably most of our neighbors had never noticed that that is happening here. Actually, I'm quite glad that through our interactions with the neighbors, some of the neighbors came in and took a look at the storage facility, and some of them actually came and saw the distribution, how it is going. Point is, these activities happen, the building use is at a time when Friday prayers are not going on. That's the only time. Or in rare case, if you have an event, there could be a high pressure on the parking lot. But otherwise, parking lot is basically empty.
And with this use, Mr. Malik, just to be clear, we're not able to retrofit the existing building. So what we're looking to do is demolish the existing building and build a slightly larger, more modern structure on entirely impervious surface at this site, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The current building itself, probably you have better records than I have, but my quick assessment is it's probably more than 50 years old, not really designed to do what we are trying to do. And what our objective is to help the needy in our entire area. So in a more efficient way than what we are doing today. Many of our neighbors might attest to it that our current facility needs a serious upgrade. And this building request or zoning request was instigated by the same reason that we are trying to do a better job at what we are doing.
Can you explain, Mr. Malik, the funeral component?
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
better explain it than I would be able to.
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
board,
absolutely.
please.
Absolutely. So although zoning requires to put a label and it's labeled as a funeral home, but really this is a supplement to a funeral home service. Actually, a funeral home service provider brings the deceased body, taking care of whatever needs to be done, for example, paperwork at the hospital or whatever, as a last step in terms of the final rituals to prepare the body. And preparation of the body involves washing the body with water and household soap, and wrapping it in a white cloth. So we literally call it the final, what do you call, final rites or something like that, where this is the last step where body is now ready for burial, and then a quick prayer is done and body is taken to the for burial.
There are no chemicals utilized as part of that process, and
Yeah,
there would be
yeah.
no bodies stored
Yeah,
overnight.
yeah, absolutely. So as I said, all the standard funeral home services are actually provided by a funeral home. We do not operate anything like that. We are only supplementing this half an hour to 1 hour of service in addition to what a regular funeral home does.
And that would not
Mhm.
occur between 12 and 4 p.m. on Friday. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's part of our agreement with our neighbor, as well as commitment to our neighborhood that we will not increase the parking problem
Okay,
if there is one. Yeah.
understood. With respect to the daycare, I made the representation to the board that the daycare is not going to be offered to the general public. And it's the foundation's vision to have most likely a handful of students that are, or a handful of pupils that are already involved with the mosque as part of the daycare. Is that a true and
Yeah.
accurate
Yeah.
statement?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So just briefly, can you cover how the layout of the building would work? So the funeral would, the
Yeah.
body washing in the basement, can you just
Yeah.
explain that to the board?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the floors will be reserved for, that's an obvious concern, that daycare and body washing in the same building, but we will have separate entrance for the funeral service, the part of the funeral service compared to the daycare. It will be a completely different entrance and a completely separate floor, isolated from rest of the activity. And same thing with the food distribution and packaging, food storage and packaging will happen on a different floor. So children are not interacting with the other two floors. So they will have a separate entrance. And even in the use case perspective, the food packaging and happens on the weekend versus daycare will be operating during the weekdays.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you're aware that we need a impervious surface variance of an additional 1% because of the parking
Yeah.
that we're holding in reserve. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're willing to affirm as a condition, the township, that first of all, we will enter into an agreement after this meeting that will be provided to the township, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that the township will have the ability to require the foundation to build the additional 8 spaces at a later date if that is necessary, correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
And also an affirmation that that impervious surface relief will not be utilized for any other construction or site improvements, such as a shed, for example, or some accessory structure to be placed at this property, correct?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay. One of the other things that doesn't necessarily pertain to the zoning relief, but I think is important to state, because there are members of the community that are interested in this application, but it's the foundation's intent to communicate through this process with the neighbors. And if there's any concerns regarding any ongoing site conditions, you will work to the best of your ability to address those with the neighbors moving forward, correct?
Absolutely. So actually, this was a great side effect of this zoning hearing, that we got in touch with very good neighbors, and we were able to interact with them and discuss ideas with them. And I'm glad to kind of hear their support. Many of them, as I said, they came on site, met me, and they also visited the food distribution facility. So in future, lessons learned, we will first have the discussion with the neighbors and only apply once we have a consensus.
Okay. Are you aware of any reason why this use or these uses at this site would be detrimental to your neighbors or the community if the variance is granted?
Really not.
All right.
Yeah.
I have,
As I mentioned, it's a high impact activity from a services perspective, but a very low impact from a neighborhood perspective. So we don't even invite homeless to come and pick up the food from this facility out of the concern that it might create some issues for the neighbors. So we rather invite representatives from organizations to take the food.
Okay. I have nothing further for Mr. Malik at this time. As I indicated, I have Mr. Clace here, and I'm happy to walk through the site plan, which is in front of the board briefly.
Sure, go ahead and I can pull it up.
Yeah, Jim, could you call it up? Well, I could start. Eric Clace from Gilmore and Associates. I would be the site engineer. There's not a lot of site work as part of this application. It's mostly building. In discussions with the township staff, we agreed to install. Let me see if my pointer will work here on the TV. Sometimes it does not. Okay. Yeah, I get that. I have the mic. I can walk up. We know there's a little bit of a parking issue out here. So what we've decided to do is put 8 future spaces in reserve that if the township determines in the future that they need to be installed, we will have them engineered and approved and ready to go. So if the township ever says go, the Zebeda Foundation would install these 8 parking spaces. In addition to the 8 parking spaces, we would modify the existing detention basin on site to capture the stormwater runoff from the impervious. Other than that, this is the general location of the existing residence structure. And then that'll be the general location of the proposed building. The mosque is this big white structure here. That's pretty much the gist of anything on the site.
And Eric,
Yeah, sure.
there was originally an access drive, obviously, to the rear of the mosque on the first site plan that was submitted to the board, and that's been removed and is not depicted on the site anymore, correct?
It is no longer on the plan.
And I think it would be helpful just to point out, so that the black rectangle, which is the proposed new structure, can you show where the jog is that basically shows the extra foot in front yard encroachment?
Absolutely. The existing building kind of jogs down into the site where we're just going to straighten that front edge off with the new structure.
And then the side yard, you can see we're not actually moving further into the side yard, but we're moving down a bit in the side yard, correct?
Right. The building is not parallel with the property line. So when we go back in a little bit, it just crunches it. I think it's about a foot.
Okay. And then the impervious surface, as we stated, that structure would be built entirely on impervious surface that's already in existence. And therefore, the 1% impervious surface variance only correlates to that parking area. Is that correct?
That is correct. All the new impervious would be the future parking.
And the only other dimensional relief we're looking for is the 4.91 acres because of the community service use. We have 4.91 and 5 acres required. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, correct.
I have nothing further, Mr. Clace.
Okay. I will open it to questions from the board.
I really don't have questions because I think we've gone over this and seen all the revisions, so I'm going to pass on any questions.
Mr. Malik, how many members of your mosque are there?
So registered members around 65. If we add some unregistered members, probably 100.
I'm sorry,
About 100.
what's the difference between the membership categories?
So 65 have monthly contribution, and there are others who don't have monthly contribution.
Okay, thank you. The funeral, the floor where you'll be conducting the last rites for the bodies, no additional ceremonies are being performed other than preparing the body for burial?
So after the body is ready, there is a quick prayer done, which happens even today in the main building of the where the prayers are done. And that's a very quick process. Takes about, actual process is about 2 minutes, but going in and coming out, it might take a little bit longer.
So
Yeah.
did earlier you said about 30 minutes, soup to nuts?
Sorry?
About 30 minutes, you said is the entire process. I thought I heard that.
The 30 minutes for preparing the body and depending on number of people, it can take another half an hour to do the prayer, but that's an existing thing. This is not a new kind of addition.
Your community center, it's strictly storing food, or are there going to be activities up there?
Right?
The community center, is it strictly for storing food, or will there be activities up there?
No other activities. Maybe at most I can think of volunteer meetings. A lot of times we have, before we start packaging, we will have a meeting. We'll discuss those things, but yeah, no other thing.
Thank you. No other questions for me.
I have a question, and question is more along the lines of this discussion about restricting what the uses are here. And you said it was what caused some consternation with the neighbors. How is that being formalized? This definition of these uses being as accessory for daycare and one use a month for a community center. Where is that set up at, written down? Or should that be part of what we're looking at as part of the?
Well, we're happy to entertain any reasonable conditions the board would have. The statement I was making at the outset was, as the board's aware, every single use has to fit into some predetermined zoning category, even if this is a bit of a square peg in a round hole situation. In my estimation, there's a lot of religious institutions, regardless, that have accessory components to them. But when we met to discuss how we were going to have this listed and presented with the township, it seemed like there was not a better way to present this than to say, technically speaking, rather than strictly listing this as an accessory use to the mosque, there's basically 3 new principal uses in this building, but the reality is they're an accessory use to the mosque. So we had dialogue with Mr. Majewski, and it provided direction, that conversation, to how we presented the application and how we applied. Certain things I think are easy as conditions. So for example, the daycare use not being open to members of the public and being accessory to members of the mosque, I think is certainly something that we're willing to agree to and is probably easily enforced. I know Mr. Malik testified as to his intent regarding the frequency of package deliveries. I don't know how we would phrase that as a condition, only to state that maybe we can have something that says that members of the community who would be served by things like the food deliveries are not instructed, and it's agreed to that they would not come to the site. So the traffic that would be presumably generated by that is mitigated, that the use of that is a use where material is removed from the site rather than people coming to the site, I think is a reasonable condition that we would agree to, that we could propose. In terms of the funeral aspect of this, certain conditions, this is not, again, open to, this is specifically a religious operation, that there will be no chemicals, that there is no overnight storage of bodies. These are all conditions that I think we could agree to and embed into the zoning decision that, again, are easily enforced if there's an issue at a later date.
I may.
Thank you. Yes, and I think you're up, Barb.
Mr. McGinnis and I have had discussions about the condition that the impervious surface increase, if granted, would be limited only to those reserved parking spaces. And that would be formalized by a declaration of restrictions that would be recorded in Doylestown. Mr. McGinnis can clarify, but I believe those reserved parking spaces are being generated as a result of the accessory uses of the daycare, the community center, and the funeral.
That's correct.
So those items can be included in this declaration of restrictions, that those 3 uses are wholly accessory to the religious use of the premises for the mosque. So we can work that into that declaration of restrictions, which I insist be recorded in Doylestown, so it's clear on record that everybody knows exactly what the impervious surface increase is for and what those uses are.
I think it's an excellent suggestion.
Thank you. All right.
I do have a couple other questions.
ahead,
I just
Bill.
want to clarify. Now, Mr. Malik, for the daycare, how many children do you expect roughly to be at the daycare facility?
My assessment is around 5 children.
And the daycare hours of operation will be Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, except it will end at 12 o'clock on Friday.
And when would it start on Monday?
So we haven't really discussed exact timings, but I would assume around 8 o'clock. Mhm.
So roughly 8
Yeah,
till what, 6 from Monday through Thursday?
from 8 to 5 o'clock.
Okay,
Yeah, Monday to Thursday and Friday from 8 to 12 o'clock.
12, okay. And you would have one person there with the children at the daycare, like one formal employee?
So we haven't decided whether this will be a volunteer run or a employee run
Mhm.
operation. It's very likely we'll have volunteers to do it. Like today, pretty much everything is done by volunteers. We have just one employee who is the imam. So everything else, including myself, we are all volunteers. So my hope is that there will be some people in the community who will take care of this daycare also.
So how many adults do you think would be actually present with the children? One
Yeah,
to two.
1 to 2, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And for the funeral service, is there a typical time when that would take place, when you would clean and then wrap the body? Or does that have to occur like in a Jewish tradition within so many hours after death?
So it's a same rulings as the Jewish tradition. And even I heard the process is also the same, washing and wrapping. So it's exactly the same process as far as, so there is no real restriction in terms of when you can do it. But at a practical level, more often it happens around, I would say, in the afternoon, more
Mhm.
likely than very early in the morning, just based on the observation. I see more often around 1 o'clock or somewhere between 1 and sunset time.
Is there
Very- yeah.
proximity relative to date of death? You know,
Yeah,
with-
yeah. So within the exact same ruling as Jewish tradition,
Okay.
it has, so exceptions aside, but normally it's within 24 hours.
But you agreed as part of the arrangement with the adjacent neighbors that funeral service, for lack of a better term, would not occur on Fridays between 12 to 4 PM.
Correct.
Is 12 to 4 PM the time that the mosque generally has its services?
So it actually has, the crowd is between 1 and 2 o'clock. That is the Friday prayer time,
Friday services
Yeah.
from 1, okay.
1 to 2. So 12 to 4 is just an extra time is to just for as a buffer.
we wanted to be a bit conservative to make sure there was as little impact as possible.
That's right. And the services on Fridays are every week, correct?
Yes, every Friday. Mhm.
Are there large services held on other days of the year that coincide with special events?
So, yeah, there could be, there are 2, what we call as Eid prayers. These are Eid celebrations.
Mhm.
And twice a year. That happens early in the morning. So of course, at that time, the building will not be used for anything else, like daycare will be closed, obviously, everybody celebrating. And hopefully we don't have to do funeral services. Typically, like, God forbid, if that happens, it will be delayed to a later time.
Okay, so with the exception of the daycare and the children in the building, you don't expect any of the other uses to coincide with mosque services?
Yes, and even that one will not coincide with the Friday prayers.
Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
oh, because it'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
finished at
yeah,
Friday at 12.
yeah.
Okay, I have nothing further.
Okay. Public comment. Anybody in the room here? Take the mic, come up. State your name and sworn in. And if you're a neighbor, let us know whether you want party status or not.
Do I need to swear in?
Yes.
Mark Sanford, 879 Big Oak Road. I'm actually a western neighbor of the mosque's property. And oh, sure. Yes. Anyway, so I'm a neighbor. Several concerns I have is impervious surface. I walked down the property today and I've noticed that there's stone. If you can bring up the thing. I've been there 35 years, and one of the problems I've seen is twofold. One is the parking on Fridays. It encroaches into my neighbor's house. You know, they're part of the mosque, but it's actually blocked my driveway at times because I have my house back here, but my driveway is along this whole length, left-hand side. Mine's a real long.
Back to the mic, because
My-
you could pull it out and take it
Yeah.
with you, but people
Okay.
can't hear you online if you're.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm the property over here on the left side from here, western side of the mosque. And I have a driveway here, and on Fridays, on occasion, cars are parked all wherever they can get to for the meeting. So I'm concerned about traffic there. Somebody at some point is going to get in an accident. They've gotten stuck there many times in all this stuff. But beyond that, I was back there today and I noticed that back in here, there's a whole stone, you know, been put down here and looks like for parking. Or have you guys gone to the site and looked at it? You didn't see stone. So from back here, where you're calling a playground area, all the way back into the woods here, there's stone. And as a matter of fact, the stone actually, if you bring it up on Google Maps, you can actually see where the stone encroaches on my property. Probably about 100 square feet of my property that are stone on it. And I assume that's there for extra parking. And I was wondering if that's included in the impervious surface calculation.
Our office is unaware that there's stone in that location. I have visited the site twice, but I did not visualize stone in the location he's talking about.
I walked it late this afternoon. So it's not a surprise, and it's been there for a while. This isn't something that's fresh. There's, if you can go back to our screen.
Is the stone within the detention basin you're talking about?
No, it is not. Matter of fact, the proposed 8 slips or 8 parking spaces appears to be in the retention basin.
Well, yes, it is, because we're going to have to modify the detention basin to install the parking spaces.
That's not a really good Google Maps. But so here's my property, and right in this area here, you've actually pushed stone onto my property, but back in here, and perhaps this is what you're seeing is this gray in here. This is all back in here. It's stone. And I would assume that's part of the impervious surface, or should be. Whatever calculations you're coming up with, that should apply.
Well, we'll have to take a look. Like I
What-
said,
is-
I've been
is
on
that
site,
correct
did not
that-
witness it.
Is that correct that stone would be considered part of the impervious surface?
It is correct that stone is impervious surface.
Okay, so that definitely goes behind where the shed is. And you can see there's a little driveway too that would go up to it. And that's actually paved. This little, right, that little drive, and it goes up in here, and you can actually see a little bit of where the encroachment is on my property at this point. Does everybody see that?
You notice vehicles parking in the area that's shown
I have
there?
in the past. Obviously, today I didn't. You know, but I have seen vehicles parked there. There's some rubbish there. There's some scaffolding stored back here, not mine. Just stuff that's migrated there over time, I presume. But, you know, this is the concern. And I know that this area here is, you know, the neighbor that was here before, I was really friendly with him. He always had water problems in the front. This is a very swampy area, this whole front end. My neighbor, Dave Ferry, who preceded the development that's there now, he dug a hole in the front and it filled up with water, and it's a pond there, and it's been there ever since. It's still there to this day. So this whole area is kind of swampy area. I'm also concerned about if you're putting a basement in, how are you going to deal with the water?
Well, that's up to the builder. I mean, they would put in a sump a system that would pump the water out of the basin if there's water. That's just a common practice.
We're not adding, just to be clear, and I'm not an engineer to testify as to whether
Sure.
that's impervious or not, but our application, this application, if it's approved, is adding 0% impervious unless the parking is built out at the township's directive. And in the event the parking is built out, we have to mitigate the increase of the 1% impervious surface with stormwater
And
management.
all this stuff here that's already stone? that be
Again, I
remediated?
can't comment on whether that's impervious or pervious. I'm not an engineer, but I'm stating the purpose of this
I have
application.
pictures. I don't know how clear they'd come up. They were on a phone, but I'm certainly willing to show the board there. The other concern was the encroachment on the side. It's only a 9-foot setback. Is that all that's needed for building in Lower Makefield?
The building is presently within the side yard setback, the existing building, and we are
Right.
not going any further into the side yard.
And that's
setback.
9 feet.
Yeah, it's
according
nine,
to your
it's about
plan.
9.8 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondered if that was, okay.
The existing building was there. And now when they're reconstructing it, that's why they've requested the variance. Because it is an expansion of a nonconformity and
Right. So why won't
slightly
they back
increasing.
off the encroachment on the side yards?
question for them.
Anyway, they're the big concerns here, traffic and people parking. And again, for me, I'm here and this neighbor's kind enough. He's part of the mosque and he's kind enough to let people park on his property. But then, at times I've come in there and I can't get out of my driveway or in. So that's based on, the services that are going on Fridays at times. So you can see there's my drive here. We share a common drive along the front here.
Okay.
But he's allowed people to park in the front. Concern there is just parking.
Yeah, but that's not part of this because it's not part of the property or what zoning can deal with. That's other agencies at the township. but
I
not-
get that, but this is all
Now,
about
the-
adding more
the-
capability to the same place.
Yep.
It is that,
So anything else?
just this stuff to be taken care of and part of the impervious surface, because I don't think it's included.
I think it's fair to say that it's not in the calculation as impervious and you don't.
Our
know the status
calculations
of
do
it.
not show the area referenced as
Yeah.
impervious.
But that would affect the percentages in the calculations.
It-
so it's
it
a
would,
reasonable
yes.
Question.
When I visited the site, I walked around the obvious existing impervious parking lot and the buildings. I didn't go back into past the wood line to see that there was a stone parking area. Maybe Mr. Malik could state whether it's stone or not. I can't state that.
Yeah, in recent times, probably I only went to the same place where Eric went, so I went behind the shed. And I don't recall seeing stones, but if that's a concern, we can take care of it, right? That's not something that is irremovable. But point is, this is not related to the activities that will happen in the new building do not change the characteristics of whatever problems exist.
Correct, but
So they are at different times. Yeah, sorry.
but if it was stone,
Mhm.
so what you said was, I believe will satisfy the board. I won't state for everybody though,
Mhm.
that you will remove the problem if it exists as part of the process here, because then that will guarantee that the calculations you're presenting here are accurate.
Correct. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And there are some additional areas that my friend has shown, which I haven't gone there, but we can take a look.
And if I may, Mr. Solar, now that this has been brought up, the township is on notice that there might be a violation. And I'm sure somebody will be out at the property to look and see if there is one.
Correct. Well, I'm not sure when I'll be there, but I'll see if I can notify, I will.
Any other public comment in the room here? Any public comment online?
I'll reiterate my point from earlier. Again, Will Edinger on behalf of Cheryl Dacey and Peter Burke of 4 Williams Lane. We presented an agreed upon set of conditions for my client's neutrality in this application. items 1 and 3 have already been complied with in that letter. Item 2 is the restriction of hours of operation as recited by Ms. Kirk. That's 12 to 4 on Friday. And item 4 is that the applicant consult with an arborist and comply with recommendations and do so within 45 days to address essentially any errant trees, dying trees along the property line. And the final, that the applicant increase the size of any outdoor trash receptacles and or increase the rate at which they're emptied and generally maintain the property in a clean and orderly manner. And so those would be the requested conditions. Items 1 and 3 have already been complied with, and they deal with an easement being granted to my clients.
And if I may, not to seem unsympathetic, I don't think that this board would have the power to approve the conditions of zoning approval as negotiated between the two private parties. But as I understand, there is an easement agreement that has been signed and is intended to be recorded for the benefit of Ms. Dacey and Mr. Burke, so that they would have full enforcement powers if those conditions are violated.
Correct. And I don't dispute that there's not necessarily an authority on behalf of the zoning hearing board to condition relief that is uniquely to the benefit of one property owner necessarily. But that said, I think it's really an academic question because we're satisfied and the applicant's already executed the easement. So, that's a private matter between two parties.
Okay. I'll go back to the board. Any more questions here? Discussion?
I do have another question. The daycare center, how many square feet is that? Just the daycare center, that floor?
There we go. The building is 2,800 square foot. So each floor would be somewhat less because you got to subtract out walls, hallways and bathrooms and things of that nature. But the square footage of the building is the footprint is 2,800 square feet.
So it's roughly 2,800 square feet, that floor. The first.
Somewhat less than that, yes.
Okay. Does it make sense to have anything in there about capping number of children, students who can be at the daycare center on a given day, similar to what a daycare center would have?
Our parking calculations show a maximum of 20 pupils, if that makes any difference.
That was, as Mr. Malik testified, there's no present intention to have 20 children there. We wanted to be very conservative from a parking standpoint to make sure with our zoning calculations, we had adequate parking. So I don't want to speak for Mr. Malik regarding a cap on a particular number, but I did want to provide additional color for the number versus the handful estimate.
Yeah, I agree that 20 is based on the calculations. So capacity wise, it does not have the capacity more than 20. So that cap seems reasonable. But at the same time, as I said earlier, expectation is to have around 5 students for children.
What should the setback be from that one side of the house for the new building? Because my plan says 14 feet. What should it be?
100 feet.
No, it's like 100. 100 feet is required
Yeah.
by the zoning ordinance.
All setbacks are 100 feet, front, side and rear.
So we're supposed to be at 100 feet. We're at 14.
Yeah,
If you start from scratch, it's 100. This is an existing site.
Existing site and existing buildings. And it does have the envelope marked on the plan to build the setback zone, and you'll see that it consumes the vast majority of the property.
And the existing house was built approximately in 1960. At that time, the setback would probably be, I would guess, 10 feet or 15 feet. And even then it was built not quite right. It's a little bit off.
Yeah.
Hey,
You like a motion?
I'd like a motion. I suspect it's gonna be lengthy, so.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve appeal number 22-1975, subject to the recorded declaration of restrictions. With the language that the township agrees to with the applicant.
Second.
If I could request that the conditions that were requested by the Daisy and Burke in the letter also be imposed, that would be 2, 4, and 5.
Is that part of the, why would that be part of the recorded declaration of restrictions?
They
For
are
the
not.
township.
The 2, 4, and 5, the 2 is that they would not operate the funeral services during Friday prayers, so not from 12 to 4. Number 4 is that they would consult annually with a licensed arborist for the tree cover in the back property. And 5 is that they would increase the size of the outdoor trash receptacle on the property and or the rate at which the receptacle is emptied. I would say I would say the second one is really the only one I think that you could put as a condition. I think it's kind of outside the township's control or the board's control for 4 and 5. But I would certainly think you can put a condition on the use since they are requesting a variance for the use.
So let's try this again. I make a motion to approve appeal number 22-1975, subject to the recorded declaration of restrictions, language in said declaration of restrictions to be agreed upon by the township and the applicant. We also want to put a condition that the applicant cannot use the daycare center between 12 and 5 on every Friday of the 52 weeks of the year.
I'll second.
Can I clarify, cannot use the date?
No, that was the funeral.
The funeral home, excuse me.
I mean, they, as.
And as I was coming up to that, I'm like,
Not doing
oh
it.
geez, is it the funeral home or the
It's- yeah, they would-
daycare? center?
Daycare and the funeral.
Okay,
to be clear,
daycare
and
and
it's
funeral.
12 to 4, daycare and funeral will not be operational.
Not 12 to 5 too, it's 12 to 4.
12 to 4.
Okay, we're going to do this again. So I make a motion to approve appeal number 22-1975, subject to the recorded declaration of restrictions with the language agreed upon between the township and the applicant. Further, we're restricting the use of the daycare center and the funeral floor to the hours of, to not include the hours of 12 to 4 on the 52 Fridays of the year.
I'll second.
And now I think there needs to be some more discussion. Are the front and side yard setbacks adequately detailed with that, or do we need to reference the dimensions shown on the drawing?
I think there was an original plan with the measurements provided that has since been modified to show the removal of the rear loop driveway. But as I have it, there was an original plan provided with the measurements from the existing building. So I would suspect that that would be sufficient for township purposes to inspect. Is that correct, Mr. Majewski?
Yes.
Okay.
To Pete's point, do we need to address the impervious in the language of the approval? Because right now, as proposed, there'll be a 22. assuming that these 8 spots get built. And I'm aware that the plan at that point would be to redo the detention basin to account for the extra impervious. Is that something, if they go to build it, at that point, it would be handled in application for the parking spots, or do we need to have the language in this approval? Barb?
Well, thinking about, you may just want to say for an impervious surface area of 22%. Just to clarify that.
It would be 22 or 21%.
Where's the
22,
number?
they're at 21. And then
22%.
if they
And then
actually
to
do that,
mitigate it
then they
back
would,
to-
yeah, I'm sorry.
They would have to mitigate it back to 21. Isn't that what we want to say?
Well, you don't even have to say that because that's just a requirement of the township. You have to mitigate any increase. So if you just say for an impervious surface of 22, they have to mitigate the increase.
But you're right, the 22% probably needs to be put in there.
Where's Matt? Where's Matt?
Motion to include that.
We really need Matt Connors here.
Because the plans have changed, you can put 22 so that
Okay.
that part of it is
So
clear.
before-
that it's not 24.
And you
Before,
could just say amend the motion to include that language that an impervious surface of 22%.
so we're going to amend that last motion to an impervious surface of 22%.
I'll second that.
Just so the board's clear, Mr. McGinnis and I will clarify all of this in that declaration of restrictions, because that was the purpose of the declaration of restrictions.
Is that also including the fact that for the daycare and funeral services are basically accessory uses? That's going to be all in there. Okay, so we
It'll
know.
all be in there.
Okay. All right. So now, any other discussion on the motion on the floor? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries as stated here, and you can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
And as a reminder, I think you need to check out behind your building, make everybody happy.
Absolutely.
Okay, appeal number 22-1980 Hydroscape. Oh, and we have them online today. We were having a betting pool. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, but can you speak up a little bit louder?
Is that better?
Yep, and
Okay.
you can get sworn in with Bill.
All right, thank you.
Sir, do you solemnly swear testimony about to give will be the truth, so we got?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Adam will read the exhibits in.
We have the application as A1, site plans as A2, proof of publication is B1, proof of posting is B2, and B3 is the notice to the neighbors.
Okay, go ahead.
Ethan, you're up.
Okay, yes, we are looking to install a pool at the Waldman residence. It looks like they are over their impervious. So we'd look to do stormwater management in the pool plan with an impervious, with an infiltration trench to compensate. It looks like if I flip up here, our numbers are, I just had it open. Looks like we are looking at a proposed 26.4 from the allowable 18. The existing there was 22.4. I don't know that that's been mitigated. So I would think that our plan with the engineer would be put into place to compensate for that 8.4% to get it to 18. In terms of pool decking, concrete pool decking.
There's something a little odd with the calculations here because the application has it as 24.1%.
I'm looking at, let me look at my last date of, because I make sure nothing changed on the last date of plans that were submitted. Last best date, what am I looking at? I have August 17th, 2022 from Kavanaugh's. Let me make sure. Yeah, 848 Duchess.
You're right. Your plans show that the application does not.
Then I apologize. I may have possibly referenced something else then. But yes, the plan is encompassing the difference with the idea that, it would look like we would want to do stormwater management to not only get that 4% or relative, but that whole 8% back to where he's at 18 there.
And if I may, we did check the calculations and the plan is accurate. The application has the typo.
That's me then. I apologize. So that was me typo then, but the plan would be.
What's the exact number? Instead of 24.1?
26.4.
The existing is 22.4. The proposed is 26.4.
And I believe your statement was you were mitigating back to the 18.
I think that's probably where it should be. It doesn't likely look like there was any stormwater management ever done to get that 22 to 18 to begin with. So I would just plan on doing the infiltration trench sized accordingly to get to the 18 to know that that's accomplished.
And that's how their calculation is laid out, that they are emitting it back to the 18% from the proposed 26.4.
There's space to do that.
Yes, they actually have it shown on the plan, which I can share for you real quickly and just show you where that is. It's the area here where you see the cursor. They have a big, long trench, but I think 4 feet deep, 4 feet wide by, it's 45 feet long? Yes.
A little less than a pool, but yes.
Adam, James had a question about, since it was advertised at the 24% and he's asking for the 26, does that impact the advertisement here,
So
application?
the biggest thing is that you're advertising the right section and what you're doing as far as the project and the effect of that project. So you have the right section for the impervious surface and you're letting everyone know that that the impervious is increasing. It's not an ideal scenario, but I don't know that it's fatal to hearing it today either. Meaning if a neighbor is still on notice that you're building a pool and that you're increasing the impervious surface, the difference here is just the extent of that increase.
Sorry about that.
So having heard that, I believe we'll proceed with the discussion here since this is.
I agree.
That I don't think it's significant and it's not a dramatic change. So, and you're talking about the solution. So open the questions from the board here.
Jim, you check these numbers and they fully mitigate it back to 18?
Yes.
That's my only question.
Yeah, and it's going to hit Andrew too. So yeah, it'll all balance.
Okay, are there anybody in the public here that wants to talk to this? Anybody online? I'll take that as a note online, but I would like to hear there's nobody online in the future. Thank you. All right, then August will entertain a motion.
All right. I make a motion to approve appeal number 22-1980, subject to impervious surface mitigation back to 18%
And if you could just add to that,
from 26.4, it's existing 22.4. They're going to increase it to 26.4 and then mitigate it back to 18%.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, appeal 22-1980 is approved as just stated. And take care.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Next up is appeal 22-1982, Munns Construction and Joyce Pate.
Yes.
Okay, you guys get sworn in.
Solemnly swear testimony you have to give will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Identify yourself. for me.
Colin Craig, Craige.
You guys, do you solemnly swear testimony you have to give will be the truth, so help you God? It's for the homeowners.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam can read the exhibits in.
Application as A1, we have the site plans as A2, we have the impervious surface calculations as A3. Proof of publication is B1, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
And go ahead and explain what it is you're planning on doing.
Sure. I'd like the homeowners to take that and start that out for us, but I'd also like to submit something additional to the board, if that's okay. Is that, I spoke with a Dan here earlier at the office and was, told I was possibly be able to submit further information to you that would impact this decision. Sure. Yep.
Compared to where they are, though, it's not.
Okay, what was just provided was the impervious surface calculations.
These are different than what was submitted?
Yes, I'd like to be able to review it with you all and go through it. But first I'd like to allow the homeowners to speak on the purpose of the sunroom addition.
Let's just mark this. We'll mark the impervious surface breakdown calculation. That's at the top of the package as A4. We can do the Shady Maple Contractors Inc. estimate as A5. And there's another impervious surface breakdown. We can mark that as A6. Both of those are, say, updated 3/22.
That's just from your website.
Got
The
it.
date was on there, sorry.
Oh, that's the form. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So that second one would be A6, and that also, I think they both come with the stormwater management controls on the second page, but that's collectively marked. And then lastly would be the dry well detail plans Oh, no, not finally. That would be a 7. And then another impervious surface calculation.
I'm confused now.
Charles, I'll explain it.
Okay, so the first one is for the existing conditions. That's a 4. The second one is for the dry well. And the last one, which is, what did I say we're up to? A 7 or a 8 is for the trees. Take it away.
Sure. Gabe and Joyce, would you like to just kind of explain the purpose of the sunroom addition to the board?
Sure, I would like to address that. Over the past couple years, as we've moved into our senior years, we have an existing deck on the side of the house. And over the increase of the hot, humid weather, we found that it's almost impossible to enjoy the deck or to sit out on our deck for very long. So we thought a plan B, of course, would be something to provide an outdoor, feeling and with a little bit of air conditioning. So we thought that would be the best thing for us at this time. Do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, basically it's to enclose, provide an enclosed surface from the elements on part of the deck.
Okay. Yeah, and if you actually want to look at the plan, the footprint of the proposed sunroom, is staying within the existing footprint as far as setbacks. They are taking a portion of their deck away and enclosing it to be the sunroom space. And, we're here today to talk about impervious issues, and that's mainly the documentation I just provided you that I'd like to explain. We're under the impression that, if you look on the existing impervious surface ratio on their lot is currently 29.5 with the allowable 18. But if you look at the, I believe you said it was A4, the Maple Contractors, Inc. Proof of estimate of work done in 2012. They actually did mitigate impervious 300 cubic feet via a French drain system. So that would bring that 29.5 down, and then the planting of 22 evergreen trees done in April of 2022 would then bring that to 520 cubic feet of mitigation when 436 is only necessary. So it's our understanding that they're already brought back down below 18% by the mitigation they've already gone through and documented.
One thing your very first page, it says your proposed impervious surfaces to be constructed are 2,615 square feet, which would get you up to 42.6%.
Yeah, I'd like
I
to.
don't see that shown on the plan anywhere.
No, I'd like to correct that. Also, this sheet, it actually is from your website. I use it on every township meeting I go to. It's very helpful. Thank you. You're not able to alter certain elements of it. So this was just to provide calculations showing the disparity between the existing and what they've already done. So if you go to the second mitigation sheet, I believe you said it was A6, that shows the representation of it existing 29.5 and the proposed impervious surface to 31.1.
Okay. So just to let you know, unless these were in response to previous previous attempts to comply with township regulations, or what was the purpose of the trees in actually the trench is more what I'm interested in. Was there a drainage issue with the neighborhood?
The trench was dug in. We did a renovation back in 2012. Part of it was to replace we had a Trex deck with timber tech, and also modernize the existing carport and as part of our building inspection, we weren't aware of that. There was a request to do stormwater mitigation at that time.
What is the impact of the calculations for the French drain installation before? What does it actually mitigate it back to?
That's where I'm lost in his calculation.
Well, it's my understanding that the combination of that and the trees that they've planted has gotten.
Okay, well, but the trees are a separate issue.
Okay.
Okay, because in general, unless it's a discussion and an agreement on the trees, we're generally not going to be looking at the trees as a mitigating factor.
Okay.
Okay, because the next person moving in could cut them down.
Understood.
So we're just looking at the French drain right now and what this does and and how that relates to this.
Sure. And anticipating that they may be the case, we've also provided dry well details, and the patés are more than willing to mitigate in other ways, to get us back to where we need to be.
I have a pretty simple question. You said a building inspector was out at the house and at that point brought up stormwater management. And as a result, you folks did the French drain system. Is there a record at the township for any of this? Is anybody aware of township record keeping or?
Yeah, I don't have those records readily available. Check it out. I would go back in our files.
I apologize. That gentleman I mentioned earlier, Dan, earlier sent us over a copy right before I left the office. And it's just a copy of the building permit that was taken in 2012.
May I see that?
Sure can.
The permit that was issued in 2012 was for the replacement of existing wood deck with patio pavers of the same size on the existing carport, and there was no increase in the impervious surface. But I guess the homeowners said that I don't know, did someone suggest that maybe you add in some stormwater to alleviate a problem? Because according to this, nothing would have been required.
We just had some excess, for instance, when a spring rain would come, the side of the house would have, it would just take a little bit longer for the drainage. So that's why we did it. It was more for our purpose as well, because we could not walk as easy there in the springtime to do granny gardening. So we had it done.
Okay, and that's the 2 foot deep by 3 feet wide
Yes,
by 125 foot long trench. Correct.
yes.
Okay. And just for the board's information, a trench of that size would, hold on a second. That would account for all of the proposed impervious surface that's currently proposed, and actually would make a big decrease in everything.
Jim, are you talking about the dry well detail? Is that what you're talking about, or? I'm a little confused. Are you talking about the French drain that was referenced earlier?
Wait till they're done for a second. Okay. Now the dry well detail, that is what was put in?
That was in anticipation of if you were requiring additional mitigation. We're hoping that what's been done so far is suitable.
Okay. So here's the bottom line. Way back when in 2012, although it was not required because there was no increase in impervious surface, the homeowner took it upon themselves to add in a French drain system, 125 feet long, 2 feet wide, 3 feet deep, I believe it said.
Correct.
And that mitigates about 5 times the amount of runoff generated by this addition. So if you were so inclined to give them credit for something they had done 10 years ago, then they could be compliant with it. And that's sort of one of those, toss a coin thing. I could see their point, but then I could see discarding their point at the same time due to the length of time. And then in their calculation, they do say that if they did put in something new, as the contractor had said, they could put in a new dry well or infiltration trench that would be 3 foot deep by 3 feet wide by 15 feet. And that would address all of the increase in the impervious surface proposed by this application.
Correct.
Can I just ask what it would go down to, what the bottom line percentage would be? This is a lot of numbers.
Yeah, I believe our intention would be to get it back to 18%.
Well, I guess question number one is how much percent? So you're saying that what the current French drain mitigates about 6 or 7% of impervious.
Let's see. Yeah, about 7% impervious. That's a rough estimate.
Yep. Okay, so we'd be more than happy to take mitigation back to 18. Technically, it's just your increase in impervious area that you need to do.
That is correct.
So your design for that small French drain would account for everything additional you're creating. So I believe that's what you're proposing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's the 3 foot by 3 foot by 15 foot system.
Correct.
Okay. So are there any other questions from the board? I have one question for Jim. The 20-foot setback is acceptable, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Is there anybody online?
No public comment online.
Okay, thank you. All right, given that's the case, and there's no other comment, I'll entertain a motion. All right, I'll make a motion to approve Appeal 22-1982 to increase the impervious from 29.48 to 31.07% with mitigation to the approval of the township back to 29.48%.
I'll second.
That's what I'm bringing it back down to. Yeah. Yeah, no, I was sorting out what he was saying earlier. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Appeal 22-1982 passes as just described.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have to go far for this one. I'm up again.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Appeal 22-1983. If you can be sworn in.
Swear you guys back in. You solemnly swear a testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Again, or am I? Okay.
Okay, Adam will read in the exhibits.
We have the application as A1, the site plans as A2. We have the impervious surface breakdown calculation as well as the stormwater management form will collectively mark that as A3. B1 is the proof of publication, B2 proof of posting, and B3 the notice to the neighbors.
Okay, go ahead and explain what it is you're planning on doing.
Sure. Amy, would you like to describe the purpose of the room?
Hello. What I'm hoping to do is add on some additional living space. My mother lives with me and we feel like we could use some additional room. We are hoping to add on some additional space off the kitchen to expand the kitchen area to allow us some seating and some extra storage. And also hoping to bring the laundry to the first floor.
Okay, and we are here to discuss two things, one being setback for the side yard and rear, and also impervious, I believe. I'll start with the impervious, or I'm sorry, I'll start with the setback. We are seeking relief or extension into the rear yard setback by 1 foot due to the design of the architect for the layout of this structure. And we are seeking relief into the side yard setback of 5 foot, requesting change. I believe it's a change of the side yard setback to 10 feet instead of 15 feet. Our reasoning for the design, if you look at the site plan and the what we call the building envelope of the existing structure, there's no real ideal place to build this as far as the function of the space that they're going to be using it as. This is an extension of their kitchen. And also, the design works best with how they intend to use the space. If we were to go out the back, we'd be further into the rear yard. And the front of the home is, where they use as their front entrance. It wouldn't really be applicable there.
Questions from the board? Have you talked about, has this been reviewed with, just as a general question, with the neighbor that this is facing on that side?
Yes, I have. I talked to her about it and I brought over the plans so she could see where everything was. I don't think she's here tonight. She indicated to me she didn't really have an issue with it when I spoke with her on the phone.
It does see the impervious surface does go up from 18.6 to 20.4. Which is not,
Well, they're mitigating.
yes, and they were mitigating, so I didn't see any problem.
From an elevation perspective, it's lower than the house. So it's not standing out. All right, is there any comment in the audience here? Anybody online?
We have one public comment online, bringing in Jeff now.
Okay.
Jeff is now in the room. Jeff, you can hit *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Jeff Bedzer. We're the neighbors of Amy's on the other angle from the addition that's being suggested. And my wife and I just wanted to note that we have no objection to the plans that she has submitted.
Okay. I was going to ask you to get sworn in, but okay.
Sorry.
Jeff, what was your last name?
Bedzer, Bedser.
Okay, well, thank you for the comment. Anything else?
Oh, nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. And hopefully the extra 2 minutes gave the board an opportunity to see if they had any other questions.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You know, what you see is what you get, so. I'm just, 10 foots. You know, I don't know how I feel about going from 15 foot to 10 foot. Yeah, that's just kicking that around in my head. I mean, I be great if the neighbor on the other side was here, but advertising did go out and they had an opportunity to comment, but no,
What's the current?
15 feet.
No, that's required, but what's the current setback?
23 foot 6 inches on the plan.
Okay.
I mean, but if you consider the deck goes out past I think, what's the deck, 1 foot?
If you look on the plan, there's a dotted line. I don't know the exact. It looks to be about 8 feet off the house.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's outside the building envelope by maybe a foot or two, maybe a foot.
Correct. And that obviously will be demolished because that's the proposed addition location.
I mean, listen, I don't have strong feelings about it, so I just want to be clear. I'm just talking out loud. This is just to start discussion between the four of us, so.
You know, it looks like there's a nice tree line there too, like what you're seeing. So it's not a, you know, direct line of sight. You look at me, I look at you.
Great feedback, thank you.
I mean, looking at the design here, it does look like it's pretty tight to the building and
I agree. It looks nice. The plan came out nice.
Thank you.
all right. Under the circumstances, I guess I'll entertain a motion since there's been no further.
This seems pretty straightforward. I make a motion to approve Appeal 22-1983.
Second.
With
With
mitigation. Subject to approval of the township.
With mitigation and approval of the township.
Second.
Any discussion? You want another minute or two there, Jim?
I'm great.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Appeal 22-1983 was approved as just noted.
Thank you.
Appeal 22-1984. Okay. Hello, is it you? All right. Is he sworn in? Yes.
Yes, we do. My name's Catherine Mari. My husband, Joseph Latsko, should be on the Zoom as well. And this is Dylan Hale, my contractor.
Dylan Hale with Hale and Son Construction.
Okay. We'll do the exhibits.
We have the application as A1, site plans as A2. We have the impervious surface breakdown chart as A3. Proof of publication B1, proof of posting B2, and B3 notice to the neighbors.
Okay, go ahead and explain what it is you want to do.
Yeah, so our driveway is in desperate need of repaving, and we decided while doing that, we'd like to widen it a little bit. These early 80s houses have small garages, narrow driveways, and we would just like a little more room to maneuver. So we're not dragging our trash cans across the grass to store them on the side of the house. So this will add a little bit of width to the driveway and a path that goes around to the side where we store our trash cans and back towards the gate leading into our backyard.
If you guys have the plan in front of you, you can see that the driveway is just going to extend up about 5 foot. Currently the width is about 16 foot wide, which is pretty narrow for 2 cars to actually fit. They want to extend it to about 25 feet total width. But starting at 20 foot at the bottom at the apron, which the current apron is 20 foot currently. It's just an old design that they were doing back in the 80s that nobody can fit in really anymore, especially since cars got small for a little while and then now they got big again. And now
Many of our neighbors have done this too. We were really inspired by what we saw in the neighborhood. A lot of folks have done this out of necessity because of these tiny driveways.
and it looks cleaner when you have your garbage cans on some pavement or on a hard surface than just against your house uneven on, the grass and everything like that. But they're the real reason we're here is increasing the impervious coverage, which 26% is the allowable amount. They're currently at about 27.1%. It's really a small increase to 30.1%. But how long have you lived at the house?
We purchased in 2014.
So everything was there
2013.
when you moved.
Yeah, and this is really the first substantial change we made other than replacing fences. Everything else was there when we purchased.
Hello?
That's Joe, her husband, Joe last
Hi.
name.
You're gonna be sworn in too.
Yes.
Sure.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you have to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, of course. We moved in actually on March 13th, 2013.
2013, oh, okay, he's
Yes.
correcting me, sorry.
But I think the point I was making that they were already of their pervious surface. They hadn't made any additions to the property. That was how it was when they moved in. It's just now that it's coming to light as they're filing to, they want to get their driveway done. So we went to get the permit. We found out they're above their impervious allotment. And now we're here for the variance for the extra 3%.
So what is your proposed mitigation?
Sorry.
What's the proposed mitigation, like you've heard with the last 4 presentations?
Well,
Oh.
I'm assuming a dry well is going to be the best, method here. When I think brought, I believe to you, I dropped this off, they had told me that you guys are going to kind of lead us into what you would want as the mitigation. So, I mean, if we're talking, it's going to be, I think it's about 300 square feet increase.
Yeah, and I had done the calculation for that, although it wasn't in the application. And basically, if you had done like a trench similar to what they're talking about, and I think when you would come to the offsite, explain that.
Yes.
What they often do is dig a trench about 3 feet deep, 3 feet wide of a certain length. They wrap that in a filter fabric so that the soil doesn't get in. And then they add in stones so that water from the driveway, in this case, would flow into that. And then you can cover it with river jack stone, or you could put it with grass over it. And that would take the water from the driveway so it wouldn't impact the neighbor. And the length that you'd need would be a minimum of 15 feet long.
So then our mitigation would be 15 by 3 by 3 foot dry well wrapped in geotextural fabric filled with number 57 stone or 2B stone. Typically, we do this for a lot of commercial projects. When we're dealing in the residential stuff, I thought it was crazy that their own allotment is only 26%. But when I'm working at the Arsenal building down in Philadelphia tomorrow. It's some stuff we do down there with amended soil and all kinds of stuff. But so 3 by 3 by 15 filled with wrapped in geotextural fabric, and 2B stone should suffice for mitigating all of that. A lot of this also, they also have a inlet at the bottom of their driveway, right at the bottom. So most of this will sheet drain to there.
But that's not the.
No, I understand that's not the point. Yeah,
So-
but it's just what happens anyway.
Well, you could mitigate water somewhere else, mitigate
can,
from some
yes.
other, like you could do it to take your roof drains, for instance, and you're mitigating the same square footage in an effective fashion.
Yeah, just, when the water runs off the sidewalk, down the aprons and it's all good. As long as we're mitigating the water and correcting the problem so that it's not, a wetland over there, I think everything would be solved.
Questions from other people on the board before I go on it here. Again,
I'm curious if we have a side setback issue by extending this driveway within 9 feet of the property line.
The current setback is 12 foot. from the house to the property line.
No, you sure it's 12 foot? It looks like
It's 14.
14.
Yes, excuse me, it's 14 feet.
Our neighbors on that side happen to be sitting behind me as well, so I'm sure,
Oh.
I'm sure they're here to comment on that, so.
I don't know what your township's requirements for the exact distance it has to be from that side would be. What is the exact setback?
Our setback for a driveway is 5 feet.
Thank you.
So we're within the setback?
You are.
Okay.
Questions from anybody else before I ask another one? Okay. I noticed you're extending that 5 foot the whole length of the driveway there.
Yes.
But obviously the garage frontage is only 20 feet. So what if it was kept at the 20-foot distance most of the way back to the garage and then just was like the sidewalk around the side of the garage then?
So are you asking what that additional 5 foot is?
Would no, I'm asking, what is the opinion of response to asking to reduce it to 20-foot width till you're back to say 10 foot from the building and then just jogging around the building rather than.
I understand what you're saying. It wouldn't thrill me, to be honest, because with 2 cars parked in the driveway, I literally cannot get a garbage can around the car.
If I just would also add, 20 foot is not a large distance for parking 2 cars. Like when we typically install driveways, 18 is a minimum, bare minimum. 20 is okay. 22 is like where you start to get nice. And if you have any friends over, you kind of need a little bit wider than 20 or 22. You know, you got to kind of get to that 25 foot to even try to fit 3 cars parked on an angle, maybe if relatives visit or.
Yeah, I mean, on Halloween, I had to pull a car out of the driveway so that people could get up to our front door. You can't, there's no room to maneuver around cars if they're both parked there.
How many people came on Halloween?
Not enough because we had a lot of leftover candy.
I mean, we only had 4 people, not 4 knockups. It was crazy.
Oh, man. The rain, I think the rain kept a lot of people away.
Rain? Okay.
Public comment. You can come up and state your name, be sworn in, and then see if there's anybody online after that.
Yes, my name is James Albrecht. I live at 1472 Woodview Road. Been a resident for over 28 years. Yes, I do. Elbrecht, James.
Go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, I've heard this, and I have a copy of the plans that Jim had furnished me, and I've sent him a few pictures digitally today so that he could review them. It seems that at the present time, we do get some runoff and puddling on that side of the yard where their driveway is going to be extended. And my concerns are that this is going to create even more water. Our garage is actually pretty close to that. And the size of the lots, at least mine, is only 1/4 acre. So with my runoff from my house and the driveways are sort of side by side, there's going to be, I think, issues. Now, I have a 16-foot driveway that I've been with for, like I said, over 28 years, and we have no problem rolling garbage cans down the driveway or anything like that. And it's, I don't know, to me, the idea of them enlarging the driveway doesn't bother me. It's just that I'm concerned that the stormwater runoff is properly managed and that when it's all done, it will aesthetically look correct, sort of with like the rest of the neighborhood. A lot of the driveways are still 16 feet or whatever, and some of them have been enlarged. It's just a question of the 1472 Woodview property is slightly a little bit higher, and that's why I get this runoff into the side of my yard. There you go. There's the pictures now. So that was after the rain, or during the rain, I believe, this past Friday. So that sort of concerns me that in the future that the more blacktop is going to create a problem. I believe it was the chair suggested maybe a sidewalk and have that maybe like a 3-foot sidewalk alongside of the garage and maybe extend the driveway some. That would be, I think, a better solution.
Sorry. I think you're making a good point, and the pictures definitely show it. Adding the dry well or like the seepage pit is gonna really help with mitigating a lot of that water. I think maybe even going, like, we're at 22 foot by 5, that part along the house. Maybe making it, sorry, that part there, that's 22 foot by 5 foot that we're talking, right where you're kind of taking the pictures of, and we're talking, maybe extending that dry well to 20 by 3 by 3 by 3, or sorry, 20 by 3 by 3 instead of 15. Adding a little extra stone, you know, it's going to really help with mitigating a lot of that water. That's exactly what it's designed to do. And I think you're gonna have a lot less of those problems once that's actually in there.
Jim, if it was 20 by 3 by 3, what would that take the effective rate to?
It'll take us back down. It'll take us back down. Right now, he's starting above. It would bring us back.
That'll take it down to about 26%.
Echo.
So your concerns are reasonable because we get this a lot. But the point that the driveway contractor is making is actually typically what happens is, in this case, when mitigation is done and it's done correctly, the neighbors find that their condition improves. It's a matter of just making sure that it's done correctly, that you laser the driveway right and you do the drywall right. So assuming that our township engineer, who's very competent, oversees this, I think you're going to see an improvement in your situation. That's what I think.
Would the township engineer and the township have oversight to possibly come out and review the land and everything prior to actually starting, and then after the driveway and everything is finished, to come out and inspect for oversight to make sure that it is what it is on the plans?
Well, the township could come out, take a look at it before you start the work. And then when the work's done, it's required that we have an inspection of the seepage pit or dry well. So we come out, take a look at it, make sure that they made it to the right dimensions, length, width, and depth, and that they have the filter fabric, they have the stone, and that it'll work properly. So there is some oversight on the part of the township.
Okay.
All right. So
So I guess that was my areas of concern.
All right, so to phrase the question to you here, a pretty typical request that the board does is to ask to mitigate it back to what the area is zoned for. You're effectively offering to mitigate it back to the 26% that it's what it's zoned for. So,
Which would be an improvement over our current situation. Previous homeowner appears to have exceeded that before we even touched the property. So it would be an improvement.
Could I ask another question? What is the normal allowance for impervious surface? Say on a 1/4 acre lot in this township?
It goes district to district. So yeah, in your district, it's 26.
26.
Yeah.
And so although they had originally planned just to mitigate what they're increasing, they're going to take it back to what it would be as if they're complying with the ordinance due to the effect of the dry well.
So this is we're talking about the existing plan here. This wouldn't be maybe making the part where the where the garage is maybe a 3-foot sidewalk as opposed to the wide expanse of the driveway.
No, what was just discussed was.
Was
to
the
expand it
existing
like
plan there?
Existing
Okay.
plan, but to put in more stormwater
Right.
mitigation, so it actually mitigates it to a lower impervious than what it is
Okay.
currently. So
So that would,
theoretically, there would be less ponding.
okay,
I mean, I think it's a good sign too, that without any discussion, the driveway contractor just immediately said, why don't we increase the dry well to bring it back to the allowable 26. So I think they appear to be acting in very good faith.
so when they do the dry well, is there actually crushed stone then visually seen alongside of the driveway? No.
Well, there's one of two ways that people typically do it. Some people, they'll top the trench like with the riverjack stone, that round stone. Other people don't like that, and it could just be grass, so that it'll be just a slightly lower area so that water will come off the driveway, go into that little low area, and then seep through the grass and into the dry well. It basically takes the water that would otherwise be laying above ground and hides it underground.
Okay. And by doing this, this doesn't create undue saturation or anything in the subsoil that would cause like a sinkhole or something possibly, or
Not typically.
not typically? Okay.
There's never any 100% guarantee, but typically there's no issue with it. That's a rarity.
Okay, that's, I've addressed my areas of concern. And I wish to be also party to the proceedings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody online?
No public comment online.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve appeal number 22-1984, subject to township approval of mitigating the impervious surface from its existing 27.71. They're increasing it to 30.01 and taking it back through mitigation to 26%.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries as just described.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Guys, have a good night.
You too. Okay, appeal 22-1985. And the township is going to comment on this when we get there. Okay, so let's get sworn in.
Chris Slaymaker.
Diana Slaymaker.
Yes. Christopher Mahoney from Stuckert and Yates here for the applicant.
And Adam will read in the exhibits.
All right, we have the application as A1, we have the plot plan as A2, the site plan as A3, the proposed layout plans as A4, B1 proof of publication, B2 proof of posting, and B3 notice to the neighbors.
Okay, so go ahead and explain what it is you want to do here.
Sure. I think I'll start with a little bit of explanation and then have Chris and Diana provide their testimony. Essentially, the application was brought as massage therapy as a profession as it relates to zoning ordinances is kind of a square peg trying to look for a round hole. There are 4 separate home office classifications in the zoning ordinance. And this doesn't really seem to fit in the definition of any of the 4 of them. As Chris is going to be carrying it out. It is a home owned by Diana, who's his mother. He does reside there. So it, by definition, is a home office. It does not
as Chris will testify, is not such an accessory office such as is provided in section 10, such that would require 3 parking lots. There's no employees. It's not client or customer overflow. Obviously, it doesn't qualify under section 9. It's not a daycare, which brings us to either home occupation class 2 or home occupation class 1. Both are as of right within the particular residential district. As Chris will testify, the usage as the home occupation does have obviously customers, clients come to treat, which is not permitted under section 7, which we apply for the variance from. But as Chris will testify to you, it's not such that there's going to be clients one after the other, or such that there would be a parking issue, such that there could be street parking. There's obviously not going to be signage, that sort of thing, which is why we ultimately ended up applying for the variance under the lesser impact of class 1 as opposed to either class 2 or class 4. So just kind of a priming explanation as to why we applied as we did. So with that, I would take testimony from Chris Slaymaker. Would you please introduce yourself to the panel?
Yes, Chris Slaymaker. I am proposing to have our master bedroom converted into a home office and to practice out of it as a deep tissue massage therapist.
All right. Are you currently licensed?
Yes.
All right. And can you describe for the panel, I guess, how you're licensed or how do you get that license?
I was trained at the School of Body Therapy as a massage therapist.
All right. And where do you reside?
7 Morningside Drive, Yardley.
All right. And that's the same house for which you're applying for this home occupation variance?
Yes.
All right. And can you describe for the panel how you would conduct your practice within your home?
I would make scheduling by appointment and make sure that there is no overlap. I do need time in order to turn over my office and sterilize it in between each patient. So there should be no issues with over scheduling patients. And we would be using existing structures as is. There would be no additional construction.
About how many clients would you have at your house at any given time?
1.
All right. And is there sufficient parking in the driveway for 1 client?
Yes.
All right. Would you require street parking in any way? Would there be any signage on the front of your house?
No.
All right. How would you advertise this business?
Word of mouth is the best method, as I know of.
All right. About how many about how many clients a week would your business see on average?
No more than 30.
And what hours would you conduct business during the week?
Typically 10 to 4.
And I'm assuming that's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. All right. And would you conduct business under any particular name?
Morningside Massage LLC.
All right. And that's the applicant that you filed this zoning appeal for? All right. And how would the clients make use of your house?
I would have them come in through the side entrance that already exists, or if they are physically disabled, we have a wheelchair compliant front entrance.
As you understand how you're going to conduct your business, would there be any impact to the neighbors at all?
Not that I know of.
What exactly would you and the patient be doing while you're within your house? Just on generally speaking.
I would be treating them for deep tissue stress or performing reflexology, which is a method of accessing the body through the feet. It sounds a little out there. I was skeptical of it at first, but one of the things that my school taught me was that we would practice on other students. So having it done to me, I realized that it was actually really effective.
Would you have any employees? All right. With that, I don't have any other questions for Mr. Slaymaker as far as his business. I don't know if the panel wants to talk to him before I move on to Diana, or if the solicitor has any questions.
Exactly how long does a massage appointment take?
It depends on what they ask for. If reflexology typically takes around 45 minutes, deep tissue massage is much more involved. It typically takes an hour and a half to 2 hours.
So, are you going to be scheduling your appointments one right behind the other, or are you going to have staggered times in between?
Gonna have staggered times in between. I need to be able to clean up the office in between each session,
And what do you estimate that staggered time would be?
probably about half an hour.
About 30-minute interval time? Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead and continue with the presentation then.
Sure.
Oh, you want to go now, Barbara, or later?
Yeah, no, I just want to
Yeah.
ask questions. You said your hours of operation are 10 AM to 4 PM?
Yes,
That's Monday through Friday?
that would be through the entire week.
So that's Monday through Sunday?
Yes.
And I know you said that on average you anticipate 30 clients per week.
Maximum of 30.
How many each day do you expect?
Maximum, it would be, I'd guess, around 4 to 6. Depending on what is scheduled.
And then there's a separate side access to the house to
Yes.
be used? Okay. And you said, unless they're handicapped, is that they would use the front entrance?
Yes.
The master bedroom, is that on the first level or second level?
That's on the first level.
And where is that room located in relation to the side? Access.
It is directly adjacent to the room with the access, and we have a sitting room which leads directly into the massage office.
And you said it would only be one client at a time?
Yes.
And there's no other employees but you?
No.
Okay, that's all I have.
I do have a couple more questions. So at present, when you and mom are home, are both cars in the garage, or are both cars in the driveway, or is one car in the driveway on a daily basis?
Both cars are in the garage. We do have an RV also in the driveway, but we don't go out that much. So anybody who would be coming into park, we have a long driveway. We can fit 2 cars in the driveway as well if needed, but we'd only need 1 in there.
Okay, thank you. And then, have you discussed this with your neighbors?
Yes, I have.
What's been the general overall feedback?
I have not heard any complaints or objections.
Thank you. That's all for now.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
Thank you. All right, Diana, actually leading into that last question, before this meeting, did you wander around and discuss this with your neighbors?
Yes, we did. We generated pamphlets that described the proposed office and what Chris's practice would be. And we went around the entire block of Morningside on our half of Morningside, met with everyone, and they were all very receptive to the idea. We do have pamphlets here as well if the board has any further questions.
And you are the actual owner of the house through your living trust?
Yes, I am the owner.
All right, and you created the site plan that was marked as part of the application by the board?
I did. I used, when I bought the house in 2011, I had a mortgage on the property, so it was appraised. There was a professional floor plan and plat plan drawn. I used those plans to update, just to make it look a little bit cleaner. Nothing has changed as far as the footprint. Clients would park in the driveway, they would enter along the side walkway past the garage, and then enter through the back of the house into the sitting room, which is already existing, and into the massage office, which was the former master bedroom. The entire, what I'm designating as the massage office is about 300 square feet of a 2,800 square foot house.
And would accommodating the office require any demolition or other modifications to the house?
No.
No other questions?
Barb, do you have any questions right now?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, you said that the home office area is about 300 square feet?
Yes, that includes, I'm including the ensuite bathroom and the sitting area as part of all that. If you're looking at the plan, it's designated in red A, B, and C.
And the sitting area. That's adjacent to the office area?
It is. It was, I believe it was originally the former owner's laundry area.
And that's along the rear of the house?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's right on the plan. If they come around the walkway onto the deck and then it's into the sitting room area, which is attached to the bedroom / office and bathroom. Jim has put it up on the screen.
The only other, you own the house in a real estate trust.
I do.
Is there any provision of that trust that would preclude or prevent a home occupation of this nature?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you researched it or double checked?
Turn that over.
Trust, but I don't know why a revocable trust, even if it did, it's a revocable trust.
It
You
is,
could yank it out of that trust tomorrow.
it is revocable. It's not in, okay, because it didn't clarify.
No, it's not a qualified housing trust or anything along those lines, right?
It was originally drawn up because my mother lived with me and she was handicapped. So it was, for lack of a better term, we wanted to make sure that she was protected.
Mm-hmm.
She is no longer with us, sadly. So as far as I just never revoked the trust. I just left it.
I'm just double checking. That's all I have.
Any questions from the board?
Are there any kind of security provisions or, I mean, accepting people by word of mouth into the house and into the neighborhood to get directly into your living space? Are there provisions against that? Or, I mean, a home office is normally, I'm a sales guy, I work in my home office, but to have outside, you know, I don't know how to ask that, you know?
That's a fair question. And the interior access to the house, we were proposing to put a lock on it so that, you know, like a deadbolt, if that would be necessary. But everything else is secure. I mean, there wouldn't be any other access to the main part of the house. The only time that anyone would enter the residence would be if they were ambulatory, if they had ambulatory difficulties requiring a wheelchair or walker. They would enter through the main house, through the foyer, and then into the massage office that way. But that's pretty much it.
So just to be clear, people with ADA needs would have to actually ingress and egress through the main entrance.
Correct. I have, you know, I'm in the process of, you know, redoing the insurance on the property to accept the massage office. This is, you know, they're aware of that. And we don't anticipate, I mean, this is for a rare instance. We don't really anticipate having, you know, a large percentage of clients that require coming through the front door.
Yeah, common sense would dictate that you're not going to have a preponderance of ADA need clients.
Yeah.
Barb, I do have a question for you. So Mr. Mahoney asserts that the proposed use best fits 200-69.A.7 home occupation class 1 home office. From your perspective, is that correct?
Well, based on my rating, that would seem to be the only home occupation that would meet the requirements. The problem is this home occupation requires clients to come to the residence, which is prohibited in this section. So he's not I mean, like class 2 clearly says like a instruction you're providing instruction to to students or things of that nature. So it's not a traditional teaching type business.
I agree.
And I mean, I am not aware of any other section that would fit this classification. I guess Mr. Majewski would be better at that determination than I.
Yeah, well, we went through this and struggled with, it doesn't fit in any category. It could fit into class 1, which requires a variance, or it could fit into class 4, which requires a variance. And, with class 4, it's more like a doctor's office or a dentist office where you have more of a turnover of patients. You're not doing 1 per hour, you're doing 1 per 10 minutes. So it's a lot higher impact. And this kind of, it fit the best as it could, I guess is the way to put it.
So the collective thinking was as proposed.
Yeah, and that's why they have to make their case of how does it not impact the neighborhood? What's the intensity of the use? It doesn't fit quite in the class 1 because you are having people come in there, but there are no employees as you would for other offices. And
there's no medical waste or noise pollution as well.
yeah, it doesn't neatly fit into any category.
I could easily say the music played during a massage is noise pollution, but I won't.
Recommend is to provide some teeth for enforceability, is if the board were inclined to grant the variance relief, maybe condition it that the Mr. Slaymaker can be the only employee at the facility to provide this type of therapeutic treatment, and that any clients cannot exceed more than 1 for any scheduled visit. That would minimize the impact and not lead to something more akin to a doctor's office, which would have required him to come in for a class 4 home occupation.
I find no objection to that.
So there's no couples massages then.
Okay, and the next
refuse
question
to
I would
comment on the
ask,
record.
with regard to that in a similar fashion is restricting the hours to what you discussed, what you mentioned, that it would only be open to clients between 10 and 4.
Yes, I can agree to that.
I'm curious what the public comment is on this.
Is there any more questions from the board at this point? All right, is there anybody online? That or they gave up a long time ago.
There's your public comment.
All right, back to the board again then, or Barbara. Anybody? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
The only thing I'm struggling with is we're asking for a variance and the owner of the property isn't directly benefiting from the variance. It's her son. It seems a little odd, but it also would seem a little hostile not to make that accommodation. But normally, I would think the owner would be asking for this for his or her benefit. But I mean, I'm sure we could word something like Barb said, get language that would probably satisfy me. So how about if I take a shot at it? I make a motion to approve appeal number 22-1985, subject to an agreement with the township that only Mr. Slaymaker can be an employee and or therapist on site, and that the hours of operation are 10 to 4 on a daily basis. And lastly, that only 1 patient can be on property at a time.
Second. And that seemed to cover what was discussed. But is there any other comment? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, appeal 22-19, whatever we're at now. 85 is approved as noted, and you're free to go.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck with your business.
This session.
Okay,
We have,
and other business.
we have an
What's
agenda.
going up?
for,
Yeah, what's coming up?
September 6th, we have an agenda.
I don't recall.
That's fair. It's an honest answer.
Do we have any continuances hanging out there right now? I'm not aware
Just
of any.
cleared up
We had-
two that were
We had-
outstanding.
Yeah, we had, the first two tonight were continued.
Yeah, the only one hanging out there would be the cell tower that we would go ahead and renotice in the event that they proceed forward.
The Brookside.
Yeah, that's Stony Hill.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I have not heard from them lately about their alternative
So,
research.
all right, so not sure if we have a meeting 12/6. But we can make that call later. Got it.
If we do, I can't be present for the 12/6.
Thanks for letting us know.
Actually, as long as we're talking about 12/6, and if that doesn't come off, what's on 12/20, because it's getting into the holiday season.
Yeah, we had that meeting last year, but only because we had to finish that hearing that we had, I think, 5 or 6 hearings for. So that was like a special meeting just for that one, but otherwise we try to cancel that one. Yes, with that and the deck appeal, I think. Yeah. All right, so we don't know about December, but we can figure that out later. In the meantime, happy Thanksgiving.
Can I move for adjournment?
You may.
I'll second that motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're done for today.
Thank you.
Now.